People always said we were the perfect couple. We looked the part, hand in hand at family dinners, matching smiles and photographs, the kind of marriage others envied. I played my role without hesitation, the proud husband who loved his wife, beyond reason. And for a long time, it wasn't a lie. She was my anchor, my safe place. I thought nothing could sever what we had built, but perfection is a fragile mask, and masks always crack. It started small. Her laugh, once warm, effortless, began to sound rehearsed. She avoided my eyes at breakfast, stirring her coffee like it carried answers she refused to share. The bed, once a place of comfort, became cold. She would turn away at night, her back to me, her breathing steady but distant. I told myself it was stress, the weight of work, the exhaustion of routine. But a man knows when his wife begins to slip from his grasp. The first time she came home late, she mumbled something about traffic and deadlines. I believed her. I wanted to believe her. The second time, she was already showered and in bed, the smell of unfamiliar cologne faint on her skin. That night I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, trying to convince myself I was imagining it. Still, doubt is poison. It seeps in quietly, tainting everything it touches. I started noticing the silences. They weren't just pauses anymore, they were barriers. At dinner, I would ask about her day, and she'd respond with clipped words, her phone lighting up beside her plate. Just work, she'd say, though her eyes flickered like flames hiding behind smoke. I tried to bridge the gap. Flowers, weekend plans, soft touches when she looked most tired. For a brief moment, I thought I saw her melt back into the woman I knew. But then the coldness would return, sharper than before, leaving me bleeding with questions I dared not ask. There were moments when I caught her staring at me with something unspoken. Not love, not hatred, but detachment. Like I was fading into a stranger she couldn't wait to leave behind. And yet I clung to her, because that's what husbands do when vows are tested, isn't it? We hold on, even as the rope cuts into our hands. We tell ourselves it's just a storm, that love is stronger than suspicion. But late at night, when I heard her typing in the dark or whispering into her phone in the hallway, I realized storms don't always pass. Sometimes they are warnings. Sometimes they are signs of something darker brewing. I didn't want to admit it then. But the cracks in our vows were already spreading, threatening to shatter everything we had built. And deep down, I knew the truth. Cracks don't heal on their own. They widen, they break. The first piece of evidence would arrive soon, and with it the slow unraveling of everything I thought I knew about the woman I loved. The first clue came on an ordinary morning. She had left her handbag on the kitchen counter while rushing out for work, and as I moved it aside to make coffee, a folded receipt slipped free. It wasn't from the grocery store we frequented, nor the cafe she loved. It was from a boutique across town, a place known for luxury, clothes, perfume, the kind of indulgence she never mentioned to me. My chest tightened as I studied the amount, too high for something small, too secret for something innocent. I wanted to dismiss it. Husbands aren't supposed to pry. But when trust starts to erode, every shadow feels like evidence. That night, I asked casually, "Did you buy something new today?" She didn't look up from her phone. "Just work stuff," she said flatly, her lips curving in the faintest smile, a lie disguised as normalcy. I wanted to press her, but the silence between us already felt brittle. One wrong word and it would shatter. It didn't stop there. Over the next weeks, patterns emerged. Her phone, once left carelessly on the couch, was now glued to her hand. Notifications flashed and vanished before I could glimpse them. She stepped outside to answer calls, her voice hushed, her back turned. When she returned, her expression was perfectly arranged, like an actress stepping. Back onto stage, I told myself stories to keep sane. Maybe it was stress. Maybe a surprise she didn't want me to ruin. Maybe. The word echoed in my skull until it became torture. One evening, as she showered, I gave in to the temptation I had fought for so long. Her phone lay on the nightstand, its screen glowing faintly. My hands trembled as I unlocked it, my heart pounding so violently I could hear it in my ears. There they were, threads of messages, numbers without names, some harmless, some vague, and one that pierced me like glass. I can't stop thinking about last night. My throat burned as if I'd swallowed fire. I didn't read further. I couldn't. The phone slipped from my grip, landing face down on the bed, and I stumbled back as if struck. When she emerged from the bathroom, wrapped in a towel, droplets clinging to her hair, she smiled at me faintly, unaware of what I had seen. Or maybe she knew and didn't care. I lay beside her that night, staring into the dark. Her breathing was steady, calm, almost peaceful. Mine was ragged. My mind screamed at me to confront her, to demand the truth. But my heart begged me to wait, to give her the chance to confess. But she didn't. Not that night. Not the next. The house felt haunted now. Not by ghosts, but by secrets lurking in corners. I could no longer tell if the woman sleeping beside me was still my wife or a stranger in disguise. And soon the lies would no longer hide behind screens and receipts. They would step into the open, daring me to face them. The night I finally spoke, my voice trembled more than I wanted it to. We were lying in bed, her phone face down on the nightstand, the glow of its notifications flickering like a pulse in the dark. I turned toward her, searching for the woman I once knew. "Who keeps calling you so late?" I asked quietly. She stiffened, but only for a moment. Then she rolled onto her side, facing me with eyes sharp as glass. "Work, deadlines, clients. You're imagining things again." Imagining things. The word stung. I wanted to scream that I wasn't blind, that I had seen the messages, the receipts, the shadows she carried into our home. But she said it with such certainty, such calm dismissal that doubt gnawed at me. Was I imagining it? Was grief for a fading marriage clouding my reason? The next day she was distant but playful. She brushed my cheek with her hand, kissed me, lightly before heading out. "You worry too much," she whispered, as though the problem was not her secrets but my suspicion. And for a fleeting moment I felt guilty, as if I had accused her unfairly, as if my love had become paranoia. That was her power. She made me question my own eyes, my own heart. But cracks only widen when pressed. One evening I pressed again. She had come home late, her hair slightly undone, perfume heavier than usual. Dinner sat cold on the table. "You promised you'd be home by 7, I said. She sighed dramatically, sinking into her chair. "Do you hear yourself? Always keeping track, always doubting me. Do you think I live to lie to you?" Her voice rose, and suddenly I was the villain. Paranoid, controlling, untrusting. She painted herself the victim, trapped with a husband who suffocated her. My protest fell apart beneath her accusations. "You don't even know what love is anymore," she spat. I sat in silence, my fists clenched under the table, my pulse hammering in my temples. She was rewriting the story in real time, turning my pain into her defense. And the worst part? Part of me believed her. That night when she slid into bed beside me, her body brushing mine, it felt like a stranger had replaced the woman I once adored. Her touch was mechanical, her warmth laced with ice. I stared at the ceiling, listening to her steady breaths, wondering how many lies those lips had whispered to another man. But beneath the confusion, beneath the self-doubt she fed me, anger began to stir. Not the reckless anger of impulse, but something colder, more deliberate. A seed planted in silence. I realized then that love could be weaponized. Not just hers, but mine. She wielded it like a blade, cutting me down until I questioned my own sanity. But every wound she carved was a reminder. Every denial, every dismissal, every gaslit word was fuel. And while she slept beside me, peaceful in her deception, I lay awake with a thought that refused to leave me. If she could twist reality into lies, then I could twist lies into something far darker. The mask of the patient husband was slipping, and soon the truth, her truth, would be forced out, no matter the cost. It happened on a Sunday evening, the kind of night meant for quiet comfort. Rain tapped against the windows, the house heavy with silence. I had cooked dinner, hoping the effort might bridge the distance between us. She barely touched her plate, scrolling on her phone, her face lit by its glow instead of by me. Something inside me snapped. Who is he? The words tore out before I could stop them. Her head lifted slowly, her eyes narrowing. What are you talking about now? Don't, I said, my voice rough. Don't insult me with more lies. I've seen the messages. I know you're not where you say you are. So tell me, who is he? For a moment, the room was still. Then she laughed. It wasn't light or nervous. It was cruel. You've really lost it, haven't you? Always suspicious, always paranoid. Maybe you should get help, but I wasn't backing down. Stop twisting this. You've been hiding something from me and I deserve the truth. Her mask cracked then. Not completely, but enough. Her eyes sharpened, her lips curling into something between a smirk and a sneer. And if there was someone else? What would you do, Cry? Beg? You can't even look at yourself without blaming me for your misery. Her words cut deeper than any blade. I stood, the chair scraping violently against the floor. So it's true. She didn't confirm, but she didn't deny. Her silence was the loudest confession of all. My chest burned as though fire lived beneath my ribs. Images flashed through my mind, her laughter with another man, her body that once belonged to me now given away like some trivial thing. Every memory we had built twisted, tainted by betrayal. I slammed my fist against the table, the sound echoing through the house. I gave you everything, my time, my love, my loyalty, and this is what I get? Her voice rose to meet mine, venomous. You think love is enough? You think coming home, sitting on this couch, eating this same dinner makes you a husband? I wanted more, I deserve more. The rain outside grew heavier, pounding like my heart. My vision blurred, not with tears but with rage. Then why marry me at all? Her eyes went cold. Because you were safe, you were easy, you were convenient. Convenient, the word shattered me. I stumbled back, gripping the edge of the table for support. All those years, the vows, the sacrifices, reduced to convenience. She might as well have driven a knife straight into my chest. In that moment, love curdled into something unrecognizable. It wasn't just hurt anymore. It was betrayal so deep it demanded retribution. I didn't touch her. I didn't scream further. I just stared at her, memorizing the face of the woman who had destroyed me. She looked back, defiant, unafraid, as if daring me to act. But I didn't. Not yet. Instead, I turned away, my hands trembling, my breath ragged. One day, I whispered more to myself than to her, "You'll regret this." Her laugh followed me down the hall, mocking, dismissive. But I didn't hear it as defeat. I heard it as fuel. That night, lying beside her once more, I no longer saw my wife. I saw a stranger who had stolen years of my life, shredded every vow and smiled while doing it. And as the storm raged outside, I felt something else awaken inside me. An old, darker self I thought I had buried forever. The past was clawing its way back, and with it, a hunger I could no longer ignore. Sleep didn't come that night. I lay in the darkness, her steady breathing beside me, my eyes wide open. Every word she had thrown at me replayed in my head. Safe, easy, convenient. They echoed louder than the rain outside, louder than the thunder rolling through the night. Thought about the promises we had made on our wedding day. I remembered her hand in mine, her voice trembling with vows of forever. I remembered believing her, believing that love could hold us together through anything. I had sacrificed so much for her, late nights at work to afford the house she wanted. Friendships abandoned because she said they distracted me. Dreams set aside because she claimed she needed me more. I gave and gave and gave. And now I wondered if she had ever loved me at all. But her betrayal didn't just wound me. It awoke something I thought I had buried years ago. Long before her, I had been a different man, impulsive, reckless, capable of violence when cornered. There were nights when anger drove me to fights I barely remembered, mornings where I woke with blood on my hands and bruises on my body. I told myself marriage had saved me, that she had saved me, that her love had smothered the fire inside. Yeah, but fire doesn't die. It waits. As I stared at the ceiling, I felt that old self stirring. The part of me that didn't forgive. The part of me that answered pain with pain. I could almost hear its whisper. She betrayed you. Make her pay. I tried to fight it, tried to cling to the man I had become. But the harder I held on, the more the shadows pressed in. I remembered the first time she looked at me with admiration. Back then, I was her protector, her shield against the world. I remembered promising her father that I would never let harm touch her. How ironic. Now the harm lived within her, seeping into me, threatening to consume everything. Images flashed through my mind. Her laughing with someone else, her body tangled with another man's. Rage twisted my gut, my fists clenching until my nails bit into my palms. I saw myself confronting them, ending it with violence so final it would silence the betrayal forever. The thought frightened me and thrilled me. By dawn, I was no longer the same man who had sat across from her at dinner. Something inside me had shifted, cracked wide open. I carried it with me into the kitchen, into the quiet ritual of coffee brewing, into the silence that stretched between us when she finally entered the room. She greeted me with a casual morning, as if nothing had happened, as if our marriage wasn't rotting from the inside out. I stared at her, studying the stranger in my kitchen, and felt the shadows of my past whispering louder. And for the first time in years, I didn't push them away. The time for pretending was over. I woke the next morning with clarity. Rage still pulsed through me, but it was no longer wild, no longer threatening to spill out uncontrollably. I had chained it, caged it, and in its place a colder thought took root. If she wanted lies, I would give her the perfect one. At breakfast, I smiled. Not the forced, broken grimace of the night before, but something softer, convincing. She glanced at me suspiciously, as if searching for cracks. "You're quiet," she said, buttering her toast. "I thought about what you said," I replied, calmly. "Maybe I've been too controlling. Maybe I need to trust you more." Her eyes widened slightly. Surprise, relief, then a cautious smile. "I'm glad you see that." Inside, bile rose in my throat, but I swallowed it. The lie was already working. Over the following days, I perfected my act. I brought home flowers again, her favorite kind. I suggested we go out to dinner, to that little Italian place she loved. I touched her hand across the table, met her eyes, and let her believe I still saw her as my wife, not the stranger she had become. She softened gradually, her guard lowered. She laughed at my jokes, leaned into my touch, even kissed me with something that almost resembled affection. To anyone watching, we were a couple rekindling, healing from rough waters. But beneath every gesture, every smile, venom pooled. I studied her closely, noting the nights she slipped away for work, the moments her phone buzzed with messages she still thought she hid from me. I memorized her patterns, the lies she repeated, the excuses she rehearsed. Each one became a thread in the web I was weaving. I no longer demanded answers. I no longer shouted. I no longer asked, "Who is he?" That question had lost its meaning. What mattered now wasn't who he was. It was what I would do to her. One evening, as we shared a bottle of wine, she leaned her head against my shoulder and sighed. "I'm glad we're past all that fighting. I was scared I was losing you." I kissed her forehead gently, hiding the tremor in my jaw. "You'll never lose me," I whispered. The truth behind the words burned inside me. She would never lose me because I wasn't hers to lose anymore. I belonged to the shadows now, to the plan forming in silence, to the darker part of myself she had awakened. At night, while she slept, I lay awake rehearsing it all. The lies, the manipulation, the patience. Revenge isn't born in chaos. It thrives in calm, and I had learned to wear calm like a second skin. She thought the storm had passed, that our marriage had survived. She didn't see that I was already dismantling her world piece by piece in silence, behind the mask of forgiveness. The stranger in my bed believed she had won. But the truth was this: I was no longer her husband. I was her executioner, waiting for the perfect moment to strike, and that moment was closer than she could ever imagine. Revenge does not arrive with shouting. It does not slam the door or announce itself with chaos. True revenge moves quietly, like a shadow slipping under the doorframe. By the time it touches you, it is already too late. I had waited. I had studied her routines, her lies, her little performances of affection. And when the time came, I chose a night like any other. No storm, no drama. Just us, alone, a bottle of wine between us, the illusion of love thick in the air. She sat across from me, at the table, laughing at something on her phone, tilting the glass to her lips. I watched her throat as she swallowed, the faint curve of her smile as she set the glass down. She didn't notice how intently I stared. She never noticed any more, not me, not the danger coiled inside me. "Another?" I asked, lifting the bottle. She nodded, her eyes bright with false warmth. I poured, careful, steady, watching the crimson liquid swirl into her glass. She reached for it without hesitation. She trusted me enough for that, even now. The irony almost made me laugh. As the minutes passed, her laughter softened into slurred words, her head tilted, her gaze unfocused. She blinked at me, confusion flickering across her face. "What did you put in this?" I leaned closer, brushing a strand of hair from her cheek, my voice calm. "Nothing you didn't earn." Her eyes widened. Panic seeped in, but her body betrayed her, heavy, unresponsive. She tried to stand, but her legs faltered. She collapsed, back into the chair, staring at me as if seeing me for the first time. Not the weak, paranoid husband she mocked, but something else entirely. "Why?" She whispered, her words broken, her breath shallow. "Because you made me into this," I said. "You chose lies over love. You chose him over us. Now you'll face the cost." She shook her head weakly, tears brimming in her eyes. It wasn't what you think." "Don't." I cut her off sharply. "Don't you dare twist it again, not this time." For once she had no clever reply. I stood, moving behind her, resting my hands gently on her shoulders. To an outsider, it might have looked like an embrace. My thumbs brushed against her neck, slow, deliberate. She shivered, half-conscious, her body limp beneath my touch. "This is the end of your lies," I whispered against her ear. Her final plea was a whisper, barely audible. "Please." But mercy had no place here. My grip tightened, steady, unyielding. Her body convulsed once, twice before going still. The silence that followed was absolute. I released her and stepped back, staring at the lifeless form slumped in. The chair, my wife, my betrayer, my victim. The room felt colder, the air heavier. I had expected triumph, a release of rage, but instead there was only stillness, a quiet so deep it pressed against my ears. Blood spotted her hand where she had clawed at herself in those final moments, faint streaks marking her skin. Blood on her hands. The thought lingered, bitter and cruel. I should have felt satisfaction. Instead, I felt emptiness, a hollow ache that no revenge could fill. But it was too late. I wiped my hands, poured myself another glass of wine, and sat across from her body. We looked like a married couple sharing one last quiet evening together. Outside, the world went on, unaware. Inside, my house had become a tomb, and already whispers of paranoia began to stir in the corners of my mind. The house was silent, but silence no longer comforted me. It pressed against my skull, thick and suffocating. Every creak of the floorboards, every hum of the refrigerator felt like an accusation. Her absence lingered in the air like smoke, invisible yet choking. I thought I had prepared myself for this. I told myself the act would free me, that once she was gone the weight would lift. But instead of freedom, I found shadows. They clung to me, followed me, whispered her name in the corners of empty rooms. Sometimes I swore I could hear her footsteps in the hallway, soft and deliberate, the way she used to walk when she thought I was asleep. Once, I woke in the night to the faintest laugh, hers, echoing from the kitchen. My chest tightened until I could hardly breathe. But hallucinations weren't the only whispers haunting me. Neighbors had begun to notice. Mrs. Carter across the street asked why she hadn't seen my wife tending the garden. She loved those roses, she said, peering at me with sharp, suspicious eyes. I smiled, told her my wife was visiting her sister. The lie slipped out too easily, but Mrs. Carter's frown lingered. Then came the police. A knock on the door, 2 officers in dark, uniforms polite but probing. "We've received a missing persons report," one of them said. My stomach twisted, though my face remained calm. I gave them the same lie. She'd gone away, needed space, a little trip to clear her head. They nodded, but I saw doubt in their eyes. They asked to look around. I let them. My heart pounded as they stepped into the kitchen, their boots inches from the spot where she had died. But the room was clean now. I had scrubbed every surface, erased every trace. Or so I hoped. When they finally left, I collapsed against the door, drenched in sweat. Relief washed over me, but only for a moment. Because doubt wasn't just in their eyes. It was in mine, too. Had I missed something? A trace of blood? A fingerprint? Some piece of her clinging to this house, waiting to betray me? I tore through. Rooms at night, searching, scrubbing, cleaning things already spotless. And still, her ghost remained. She appeared in mirrors, not her reflection, but my memory of her. Smiling, mocking, eyes glinting with secrets. I would blink and she was gone, but the feeling remained. I wasn't alone. The whispers grew louder. Neighbors, police, her ghost. They blurred together until I couldn't tell if the danger was outside or inside my own mind. Justice was closing in. Or maybe it was madness. Either way, I knew one truth. The walls were shrinking, the lies collapsing, and the past I had buried with her body was clawing its way back to the surface. And soon, someone, maybe the police, maybe my own conscience, would dig it up. The knock came again. Louder this time, firmer, the kind of knock that didn't wait for permission. When I opened the door, 2 detectives stood there. Not polite visitors like before, but hunters who had caught the scent of blood. "Mr. Hale," the older one said, showing his badge. "We need to ask you a few more questions about your wife." My throat tightened, but I forced a weary smile. "Of course, come in." They moved through the house like they owned it, their eyes scanning every corner, every surface. I offered coffee, trying to steady my hands as I poured, but they noticed. They noticed everything. "Her sister says she hasn't spoken to her in weeks," the younger detective said, his gaze fixed on me. "Strange, considering you told us that's where she was staying." The lie I had woven was unraveling. I swallowed hard. She must not want to talk to anyone. Things were difficult between us. The older detective leaned forward. "Difficult how?" My chest burned. Images flashed. Her laughter, her betrayal, her last breath. I wanted to scream the truth, to confess, to free myself of the weight. Pressing on my ribs, but the shadows inside me whispered, "Not yet. Not ever." "She needed space," I said finally, my voice thin. "That's all." They exchanged a glance. Not convinced. After they left, I sank into a chair, trembling. The walls of my house felt tighter, suffocating. Every lie I had told echoed back at me louder than before. But it wasn't just the detectives. The guilt was eating me alive. At night, I saw her face in my dreams, lips parted, eyes wide with betrayal. Some nights she accused me, other nights she smiled, as if mocking my misery. I woke drenched in sweat, gasping for air, unsure if I was still dreaming. During the day, paranoia gnawed at me. Every sound of footsteps outside, every whisper of neighbors, every ringing phone felt like doom approaching. My hands shook when I tried to eat. My reflection looked hollow, haunted, more corpse than man. I had thought revenge would free me, that her death would balance the scales. Instead, it chained me tighter. Love was gone. Trust was gone. And all that remained was ruin. One evening, I sat alone in the kitchen, staring at the empty chair across from me. Her chair. I poured wine into her glass out of habit or madness, I couldn't tell. I raised mine and whispered, "We're still together, aren't we?" The silence that followed was heavier than any answer. When the knock came again, sharp and decisive, I knew it wasn't just a visit this time. The truth was circling closer, ready to devour me. And as I stood, heart pounding, I realized something brutal. Revenge hadn't destroyed her. It had destroyed me. The night before they came for me, I sat alone in the living room, lights off, the hum of the refrigerator echoing like a funeral bell. The house felt smaller now, more like a coffin than a home. Shadows clung to the walls, whispering her name, reminding me of every vow broken, every lie told, every sin carved into the fabric of this marriage we once called sacred. I used to believe justice was something handed down by courts, judges, men in black robes. But now I understood. Justice lived in the silence of guilt, in the weight pressing against your lungs until every breath was a confession. I thought of her face, not in betrayal, not in death, but on the day we married. She had looked at me with something close to purity, and I had believed it. Perhaps she had too once, but somewhere along the way, the love between us curdled, poisoned by secrets and pride. And now she was gone, and I was left drowning in the aftermath. A siren wailed in the distance. My hands trembled as I poured myself another drink, but the glass nearly slipped. I raised it anyway, whispering into the emptiness. "We destroyed each other, didn't we?" No answer came, only the faint groan of the house settling. Yet I felt her, in the chair across from me, in the corner shadows, in the back of my mind. She was everywhere and nowhere, a ghost bound not by death but by what we had done to each other. When the knock came, it was different this time, heavy, final. The kind of knock that didn't ask permission. My chest tightened and I rose slowly, each step toward the door feeling like a march to the gallows. Through the glass, I saw them, detectives, uniforms, shadows of the law, their faces blurred with the pounding of my heart. But in that moment, something strange happened. A calmness washed over me. For the first time in months, my mind was quiet. No whispers, no footsteps, no ghost, only silence. Maybe this was judgment. Maybe it was damnation. Or maybe it was mercy, wrapped in the shape of handcuffs and steel bars. As I opened the door, I thought of the question that had burned in me since the night of her betrayal. Was revenge worth it? I had destroyed her body, yes, but in the process, I had destroyed my soul. Love had rotted into hatred, and hatred had left me with nothing. The detectives stepped forward, their voices blurred as they read me my rights. I didn't resist. I didn't speak. I only looked back at the house, at the life we had built, the home turned tomb, and I realized the cruelest truth of all. The final judgment wasn't theirs to give. It was mine, and I had already sentenced myself.